So many people think marketing in like the science, like it's art and science, right? And the science is like the numbers, but like the science is actually in the experimentation and being able to say, we don't know what's going to work.
I don't know why I'm like on this soapbox right now, but
Keep going.
it's like I feel like we've hit a nerve here.
I don't know. I'm making it up as I go, but so far it seems to be fine.
Nuanced. Yes, nuanced.
My LinkedIn is unhinged.
That's why I reached out to you.
Welcome to Talking Too Loud with Chris Savage, the show that's serving up the loudest takes on building businesses, top-notch products, and unforgettable brands. Today, I'm here with Bridget Putker, a copywriter and marketer who's been in the game for over a decade, working for ad agencies and startups, and now running her own business.
Oh boy, what has got me talking too loud today? Nope. I was going to say one thing, and then I was like, that's kind of a downer.
No downers here today,
No
Sylvia. I know
downers.
you like downers, but not right now.
I feel like I'm only talking too loud about bad things. I'm shouting angrily at the TV, at the news. But a good thing, I'm going on a little vacation soon.
Nice.
So getting excited about being in some sun in Mexico and just being in the ocean in a pool.
Ugh.
That's my dream right now. That's my dream.
I'm going to be talking too loud about your vacation living through you. No, similarly, I feel like besides the news of it all, I feel like that's also what I'm talking too loud about right now. But it's also because it's like, it's just too much content. I can't keep it in my body. It needs to like an outlet. It needs to go somewhere.
100%.
But I said this week to somebody that I feel like most of my clients are in California for whatever reason. Like, and I'm like, how's the sun? How's the weather over there? Like, I talk more about the weather since COVID and being remote than I ever did in my entire career. But I'm also in Chicago, so and we have the sun today. So I'm like, wow, we have the sun today. I'm going to go on 17 walks. Like, that's just so...
You have to live vicariously, though, through everybody else.
Yeah,
Through
and
the
you have to take
Californians.
advantage when you do have the sun and can, like, go outside. So Chris, I'm also always being told to shut up or shush or whatever.
Good. Well, I'm glad we're not alone. And, for me, I actually just was on vacation in Puerto Rico, and it was very sunny and very warm and very lovely. And I was actually shushed by my wife a few times because I was too excited at these
Yeah, we're
dinners.
those two loud Americans that...
Oh, I mean, it was just like, it's pretty funny. I was like really excited about something. And she's like, oh my God, Chris, like people
What's
are
your
having a quiet
thought?
dinner.
What's your thought on going to a family restaurant, okay, and another patron shushes you or your family?
That's
Deal
that is
breaker?
rough.
That's rough.
I think that is a deal breaker if it's coming from somewhere else.
Right?
Yeah, I kind of just
Yeah.
look at them and I'm like, it doesn't sound like you're having any fun over there.
Yeah.
I think especially
Have
if it's
more fun.
Well, especially if it's a family restaurant, which I assume by that you're defining this like people are bringing their kids and they're
Exactly.
loud. Yeah, then everyone knows what they're signing up for. I think it's one thing if you signed up for like some like 5-star
Yes.
thing and it's like, you could hear a pin drop and there's like the little like moody music going. Yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah,
But,
we're
like,
not at like,
yes.
Michelin star. Okay. That happened
We're at a
recently to a
Chili's,
friend.
okay?
Yeah.
We're at a
Let's
Chili's,
set
yeah.
the scene.
We're at a Chili's in Times Square. Actually, I think that's a Fridays that's there.
Chips and salsa, I definitely get too loud about chips and salsa unlimited. So yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Who doesn't?
Chili's, yes, unlimited blooming onion. We're not going to get into it. But what we are going to get into is let's talk about starting your own agency. So I know you did that, Bridget. That was a big leap. Like, what inspired that decision, and what's been the most unexpected part of that journey so far?
Yeah. I feel like starting in an agency role, like right out of college, kind of opened my eyes to what was possible right away. It was kind of like, oh, I could do this, like a smaller agency. We have our own clients. It's kind of cool. We're coming up with all these concepts. And I studied advertising, so I've always swayed a little bit more on the creative side versus like, I think marketing was in the business school and advertising was in the media school technically. So even just having that delineation was interesting. And then I like wandered into tech and I stayed for a while. I kind of went around different, I don't know, everybody does like the year and a half at different companies and it's just difficult. Like small B2B startups, it's a hard landscape to be in. the majority of my career has been marketing to marketers, which I love. But I kind of just got to the point where like, lay off, work at a company that like maybe it wasn't necessarily for me. I'm fighting with this CEO about t-shirt colors and I don't really care about that. And then like, you know, your salary gets cut at some point and I'm just like, this matrix is not working for me anymore. And I very strategically like started at G2 in content, moved to big time and worked in like paid side. So I tried to like get every piece of what a B2B marketing team is, because I had aspirations to be a CMO. And then when I was in a director level and I saw that the CMO was in 100 meetings a week and responsible for all these numbers, and I was like, nope, that's not for me. Just keep me on the creative side. Like, I just want to be the ideas girl and then execute that stuff. Like, that's the way that my brain works. And I just felt like the system was just kind of like not for me anymore. And I was like, I can always go back to being on an internal team. But I decided to give it a go in the agency side. I candidly had a few of my friends that feel like about a year ago, there was this mass kind of exodus between people being laid off and then deciding not to go back into full-time roles, just being like, okay, I'm just going to freelance. But it's been just over a year now, and I am like truly now building what I'm calling a content collective. Agency, I feel like, has a hierarchy, and also like everybody in B2B is like kind of allergic to what an agency is because it's very deliverables focused. And I want to be more like, we're your partner. We like act as your internal team, but collective meaning I'm not in charge. Like, you have 3 people, 3 senior marketers on this project. And like, we've all built these content programs before at different companies. And we all have different sways of like, somebody's in brand, somebody's editorial, somebody's in growth. So like, we're all working on the same project so we can move all of those buckets forward.
So you're saying like this collective now is not like, it's like a group of people who you like working with each other, but you're all freelancers and do different things. So you might go into a company and say, hey, like I can come in here and help you with this creative side. And I know this person is really good at doing like brand ad stuff. I know this other person. And they're like, yeah, I think I need the creative and the brand ad stuff, but I don't need that other thing. And so because it's not just an agency, it's individuals, but individuals who know that they can work well together. Is that the idea?
Yeah. And I think that honestly, like one of the things that I found as a freelancer is like, do you know somebody that does this? Do you know somebody like the network that we've created too? Like, I don't know how to explain this any better than freelancers in general. I don't think see other freelancers as competition. It's community. And like, if I have enough clients and I'm good for the month, I'm also like working very month to month or week to week even sometimes, like being able to recommend somebody else in my network, like that comes around. It kind of is like a nice karma. It's a good, like feel good, but also like we all like working together. And I think that's the biggest thing that I felt solo was I just miss working with my friends. And now I get to pick who I want to work with, which is even better. So yeah, I'm like, you know, pulling all my friends into this, like, let's like build something together and we can still have these projects on the side that, to your point, Chris, like somebody comes to me for a brand project and they just want a brand project, more than happy to service them. But I think that it just comes down to like, just having different things, different special projects that I'm excited to work on so that I don't have to work on 10 different things a month. You know, it's like, how do I scale down to 3 or 4?
That's awesome. You said a lot in that intro, and I also want to go, no, that's great. But there's actually a lot of stuff I want to go back and dig into. So one of the things you said is you worked for a bunch of like small B2B companies and that was challenging. And now I know you help a lot of those companies too, but what do you see as the challenge? Like, what do you think, like, what makes that so hard?
Yeah. B2B companies are their own animal. What I saw internally and what I'm still seeing externally is that companies kind of hire these marketing teams and then each person on the team owns like a channel, or like you have demand gen and they're owning like this and content owns this and social. Like instead of teams working together, everybody's running a different direction and there's no like nucleus at all. It's just kind of like month to month, we got to get the numbers. We have to make sure that we have the leads in and like all these things. And I'm not saying that things shouldn't be numbers driven. But I think that teams need to work together more.
The collaboration piece. You're basically saying, or at least what I think I hear you saying in there, and tell me if this is right, is like people will be sitting next to each other working in the same department, but with goals that are so separate
Totally.
that like obvious things that should be done to collaborate or
Yep.
done together don't happen.
Yep.
And then it actually feels very lonely, but also it's harder to get the combination effect of like you see the brand campaign and you see a demand gen ad and you go to an event and you try the product and they're all instead of feeling unified, they can feel separate because people are so siloed.
Yeah, I feel like an integrated marketing campaign is like such an old traditional way to say it, but like where did these larger like brand campaigns go that like, we can fit all the channels into, and like the content that's going into those channels like is all speaking the same message, or like okay, we have this product launch coming up, like how do we start talking about that now so that people understand that that's what this company does. And I think it's a symptom of, in my opinion, like being like so product marketing focused, like marketing swings to all these different things so often, and it's almost always product marketing and demand gen. And I really see this like culmination of like, well, the in between of that is content, and content runs all of that. So selfishly, but also like how does the content team fit into all of those things so that you can get the whole team together, galvanized, get people in the boat. I think that's another thing that B2B teams don't do very well, is like listen to other people and their ideas and tap into customer success and tap into sales and tap into all these other. We don't have to listen to them and every single thing that they're saying of like, I need a one pager. Well,
but maybe listening a little is a good idea.
Yeah, because when they see those ideas out there, they're like, oh, I understand. Like, I understand what marketing is and why we have this team now. Not that the marketers get to goof off in their meetings and get to take Fridays off when the salespeople are going to the office every day. You know, it's just like there's always been this thing, and I'm so bullish on like, I'm trying to cozy up to everybody in the company because it's so much easier for me to do marketing, specifically content marketing, the more people that I have in the boat.
Yeah, I hear you completely. And I feel like it's like also you're getting it closer to the customer if you're talking to everybody, because you're going to get different perspectives of what the customer actually cares about.
Yeah, it's interesting. Don't you think marketing is probably the furthest away from the customer, but we're the ones that are supposed to talk to them?
I think without work, yes. Like, I think that's right. Like, you're guessing what the customer's going to think, but like, it's also, that's where you can run into, I feel like, major disconnects where people don't even value marketing in some organizations. I feel like that's a thing that happens where someone will make a product, it starts working. Like, and by work, I mean, some small number of customers find it, word of mouth might kick in. And then they're like, well, I'm not really doing any marketing. And it's like, no, actually, you probably are. There's like a lot happening in like the pages of people touching your product and the experiences they're having. That is like a brand experience in marketing. And then they can't figure out how to like translate that into a team, a department, and goals and stuff. So yeah, I agree. I think it takes more proactive work. And I'm a big believer that it also takes not just like, I've talked about this ad nauseum on the show, but I think it's like a really good thing to talk about, is like, the quantitative stuff is great, but you have to get the qualitative. Like, you have to actually do the focus groups and like send it to people you trust who have great taste. You're like, do you like this thing? Is it good? And they're like, I love it, or I hate it, or whatever. And it's like, guess what? That actually matters. And it matters even more when you're farther from the customer. Mm-hmm. You know, I want to go into something you said in there about like the different teams not communicating and working together, or even like who's driving. And one thing I've been thinking about a lot is like, you don't always know when something's going to resonate, right? Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, I'll see something resonate much more than we're expecting, but it might be like a product thing, or it might be a brand thing, or it might be a content thing. And then it's like, how much should you change the other functions when you see something that really resonates? I don't know. I find that something that's like pretty natural and easy to do when you have like a small team and they trust each other, like your collective of people who like really trust each other, and is much harder when people have separate goals and plans and the company's bigger. Yeah.
And I think that's the key, right? Is like from the marketing leadership side and even above, like how do you make sure that your teams are set up to collaborate together to have those moments? I think, again, one of the things that I saw internally was we're responsible for so many things, and so much of it is just output and not outcome based, that it's just like, I don't care how many social posts go out this week if they don't get any likes on them. Like, who cares? I've seen it so much of like, we don't have time to think anymore as marketers. We're just do. And I'm all for doing, because I think so much of it too has been like, it's either all strategy or all execution. And I'm like, what's in the middle? Like, where is there like some middle ground? But I agree with you. Like, so many people think marketing and like the science, like it's art and science, right? And the science is like the numbers, but like the science is actually in the experimentation and being able to say, we don't know what's going to work. Honestly, the things that we put together the quickest and just got out there is probably the thing that is going to work the best, instead of like having 10 cooks in the kitchen and everybody being involved. And I think there's a time and a place for both of those things, but I don't know how much you change your whole strategy because something worked, because you don't know what piece of that worked. Did that work because that specific product feature was really popular? How do we just double down on that campaign? And to your point, how do we have enough of a customer relationship, whether that's a customer advisory board that the marketing team can tap into or whatever, to say like, why did this work? Like, we think we're really smart as marketers, and I would say that we are to a point, but we don't know everything, and we don't even know why some things work sometimes. We can number it all the way to hell, but sometimes the answer is not in the number either, you know?
You mentioned outcomes versus outputs, and like, what's an example of like you working with a client and they have a really clear outcome, or you're trying to help them to like distill down an outcome? What's an example of a good one? What's an example of a bad one? Because I feel like, yeah, people do, you're right. Like, I'm just thinking about it myself. Like, outputs are they feel very tangible. They feel very like, yep, I'm going to make this social post. I'm going to write this, tweet, etc. Yeah. But the outcome has like a much deeper intention.
Yeah. My brain, and I started my SaaS career again in content and more specifically SEO at G2. So I kind of always see things through that lens of like, we can make bets based on keyword volume and all of these things, but some of it is like, we're making bets based on customer stuff or what we think we should write just because we have this other piece or whatever. But I would say there that the outcome is like, we need traffic to go up, right? That doesn't take a month. It doesn't take 3 months. It's like a consistent battle. Yes, the output that you need to measure is how many pieces have we updated? How many pieces are net new? So like, people get so stuck on the output because I think that teams are measuring productivity that way, instead of looking at what's the outcome that we're all going after, and do we have enough trust from the leadership team, leeway, time to say we're going to really run in this direction. Following the marketing trends is also hard because it pulls teams off those paths too, right? It's like you're losing people off the boat to go run down these other things, that ChatGPT search, for example. Like, is it going to eat Google? Probably not. Maybe some point, maybe we should test a little bit of that stuff. And like, I'm not saying abandon it, but if it's 2% of search traffic, I don't want to spend 85% of my day there, you know?
How do you know which trends to pay attention to?
Yeah, you trust yourself and you trust what you've seen, but you also I think that that's one of the best parts about having a personal brand, is like me being able to say out loud, like, what's working for people, or I can try the silly things on my stuff and see if that's going to work. And candidly, like on social specifically, brand pages is a whole other beast, but I think this like founder-led motion is really strong if people are doing it correctly and they're not getting AI to write every single one of their posts and all this, it's like,
yeah, they have a personality.
Yeah, the whole point is that it sounds like you and it's your point of view, right?
Yeah, and I obviously agree with that and constantly doing that. And also I agree with the like testing piece there. It's like so much easier. It feels, I think, for everybody, like the weight of testing on a personal brand versus a company brand is completely different.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting to hear you talk about outcomes. One of our values at Wistia is focus on outcomes. And
yeah, it's great.
When we established that value, it was because we had people who were too focused in decisions on the outputs. Mm-hmm. And it's like, actually, no, I'm not even, we're not prescribing what input should be done to get the outcome.
Yeah.
And you actually should have freedom and flexibility to change that a lot. But the outcome, the result that is like, we think is possible based on what we've seen. And it's funny, like, just to stay on the personal brand example, we had some breakthroughs on my LinkedIn last year. And we're I was posting maybe like once a day, like text posts, and then like doing a newsletter once a month. And it was like growing and stuff. And then started posting one short video a day, like a vertical video.
Yeah.
And in the first 2 weeks of that, one of them really took off. I'm like, oh, maybe we should do 2 short videos a day, just taking clips from the podcast or things. And that started to take off, and then do 3. And we basically what ended up happening is like the input shifted. So it was a text post, and it turned into the short vertical video as the input that we think is the best job of driving the outcome. And it could shift again, but that's currently the one that is like the most important, the most valuable. And I just say that because I think it's easy sometimes for people to miss like evaluating the input versus the output.
Yep.
Where it's like you control the input and you think it's going to do something.
Yep.
And it's just, did it actually get the result? And so, yeah, it's just interesting because it like resonates with me, like the personal brand testing stuff, trying to get people to actually look at outcomes. And it's just so easy not to. I feel like it's too easy to report on outputs.
Because it's right in front of you, right?
Yeah.
And those are the things that, like, as a brand marketer especially, like, coming up with outcomes that I'm going to measure, like word of mouth or dark social, which is just brand marketing. Like, why are we making things up these days? I don't understand.
Oh, isn't it fun to call dark social? That's like when people are in Slack or text or Signal or WhatsApp. That's not messaging. That's dark social.
One of the last CEO that I worked for, she would say all the time, she's like, I want you to be on a playground and not in a pressure cooker. And she just, like, it took off so much of like, oh, like, I don't have these goals where I have to publish 10 blogs a month and I have to do this and I have to do that. Like, she wants me to look at the larger picture and say, we need to get as many signups in before the Christmas season, it was a gifting platform, as possible. Whatever we need to do to get there, have fun while you're doing it. I think in B2B, we have this opportunity that not a lot of teams take, and I hate to be the one that says B2B is boring, but like the people say that because it's true, right? And I'm like, we have that means that there's an opportunity to be fun on the other side of it and stand out that way.
Yep.
And people don't, when marketing teams are having fun, you can tell in their marketing that they get along, and like, what's better than that? There's no better magic to put into your content than that, you know?
Totally. It's also like, to the point you were saying before, like it's harder to get traffic to your site. Like it's harder, like the SEO stuff is harder. There's more AI answers for everything.
Yep.
There's the LLM stuff, still small fraction of searches, but growing rapidly. There's algorithm changes more often, harder to get traffic off of social.
Yep.
And so it does mean that like the traffic you're getting is, I think, shifting. It's going further down funnel, right? Like people are doing more, they go to G2, like G2 didn't used to exist. Now it exists. So if you're going to buy a product, you're going to go there and check the reviews, which means before you might have, like 10 years ago, you might have talked to a sales rep and be like, do you have other customers I can talk to? Maybe feel comfortable buying this thing. It's like, well, now you just go to G2 and like probably feel pretty comfortable, or not in the first place, not even talk to the company that has the bad reviews.
And I think that leaves even more space for your marketing team to understand all these other channels that like they can build content in, right? That it doesn't have to be like, oh, we own our G2 profile and we just like slap those badges on our website. Like, what can you actually do with that that's like different and fun? And I think that more and more people, as more and more buyers, like you said, everything is moving down the funnel, but that means that people are like on this like hunter-gatherer mission, and it's like, it's our job to leave the pieces there for them to understand what the company is. So it leaves us more room to do that. It leaves us more room on the website. Somebody in one of the Slack channels I'm in had said like, hey,
your dark social?
My dark social, yes. Was like, hey, if you got a cold email from somebody that like you were actually interested in with the product that they were selling, would you respond to that, or would you go to the company's website first? And everybody in that channel said, I'd go to the website, I'd go to G2, I'd go to LinkedIn, and all of those things before even responding to the salesperson. So somebody in demand gen is saying, oh, the outreach emails that we're sending are not working. And it's like, well, but people are doing their own research. It's just that the motions are shifting. It's not that anything is dead. I'm so sick of that. Like, we're going to need outreach. We need BDRs. That's the hardest job. Like, I get the whole AI thing. I understand all of that stuff. But, like, candidly, things are dead because some LinkedIn guru said somewhere that this was the next big thing. So then
that's a controversial thing they can say that's going to
and then it gets flooded in that space. So like now everybody's offering a gift card for a meeting. So that's not going to work anymore. So then we go back to like, again, it's just like a pendulum that's like, it's not actually that the channels are dead. It's that we're overcrowding the channels when everybody's listening to the same people about what to do.
And you're asking for a world that doesn't exist anymore, right? Like you're asking for the world of perfect tracking that we had.
Even 2018 tech does not exist anymore.
Exactly. And I think that, but I think that there's a lot of people who got into these positions of like running these parts of, running these parts of marketing that came up during that moment where it's like, well, I knew every dollar exactly what I got from it. And now you don't. And so trust matters again.
Yep.
And brand matters. And I agree with you 100%. I think there's like the boring companies, the ones that haven't figured out how to tell a story. Like you don't have to be boring. And in a boring market, that's often one of the most exciting markets to get into if you could tell a compelling creative story because you will stand out so dramatically.
Yep.
But to do that, you have to put messages out into the world. You can't track exactly how their people are responding. You have to trust that is making people feel like it's funny to think about. It's like trust is making people feel something, and then literally you've saved a little space in their brain. So when they think about this topic, this little space in their brain is like, Wistia. Oh yeah, video Wistia, and like that's what you're going for, which is a funny thing to say, but that's like what it is. And I think that feels so different. And so right now there's still gobs and gobs of opportunity there because most people haven't jumped on this bandwagon yet.
I also think that this lends itself to like the idea that marketing teams don't have to be huge. Like you really, and I say this because most of my clients are early stage startups or they're like Series C startups that have seen their content start to decline and they understand that they need to like invest in brand marketing to like really get somewhere because I literally had a CEO last week say, well, you could take our logo off and swap it with our competitors and nobody would know. And I'm like, it's good that you see that and understand that because that's exactly what like we're trying to do. Yeah. A lot of people won't say that, right? But
nobody has ever put it like that. That's actually a really interesting.
I know when he said that, I was like, yeah, you're right. Even like the colors are all similar, and like the way that you're positioning this is similar. And yes, if you're a video conferencing software, right? Like an events platform, they all have the same features. Everybody does the same thing because that's what the customers asked for. So if you have like comparable products, the only thing that's going to stand different is the brand of like how you position that and what you sound like. And I think that that's another thing that I fell in love with copywriting early because I love design. I didn't go to design school. I wish that I had. I started at school in engineering, which is a whole other story. My parents are very proud of me for switching to advertising. I'm doing okay, Mom and Dad. It's fine. But I always say, like, I have design eyes, but I don't have design hands. Like, it would take me forever. Like, great with the Canva template. Give me that all day long. But, like, creating something from scratch, I can't do. But words, I am so big on this, like, you have to have a point of view. That's the only way your content is going to stand out. And also, like, speak like we're speaking. Speak how normal people speak. Like, my LinkedIn is unhinged, but people follow it because it sounds like me, because I am unhinged. And like,
that's why I reached out to you.
Exactly.
It worked.
But it gets me clients too, which like, I would so much rather be posting memes, like silly things like that, and show you my personality and the way that my brain works, instead of here's 3 things I learned in marketing this week. Like, there's 100 people saying that. I don't need to be one of them.
Let's go deeper here. So you're unhinged. And which I love.
Proudly
unhinged.
Proudly unhinged.
But so many people are afraid of, like, quote, hurting their brand or like talking too real or swearing or whatever, like not being exactly on message. But you found a path towards like growing your audience by actually being yourself. What advice would you give for somebody where, like, did you start like this? Is this how it just like happened? Or like what advice would you give to somebody who's like, they buy into what we're talking about? They're like, yes, my company should do founder-led marketing, or we should really invest more in brand, or we should be willing to be more creative, do different things, but they can't. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I think that you said the keyword there, which is audience. Everybody thinks about the posting and how much you should post and what you should be saying. I'm so much more focused on who I'm saying it to, and that is why it resonates. I was really a big proponent of marketing Twitter back in that like 2018, 2019. Like that was a really good space for the B2B marketing community. And I just met so many people. I started a podcast with somebody that I met on the internet. We didn't even meet until we finished season 1. She worked at Drift. I was at G2. We were both just like, let's start a podcast, like, because nobody's saying these things out loud. And I think that was a big catalyst for me, because promoting that, first of all, the only reason I started the podcast was because I didn't have podcast experience, and in content marketing in that time, that was the new thing. And I was like, I'm just going to do it myself so that I can put this on my resume. Yeah. And I've frankly always been somebody that said the quiet part out loud, because I'm just confident and I have a point of view, and I'm maybe say too much, or maybe sometimes don't know exactly what I'm talking about. But most of the time, if I'm saying it out loud, I've done my research and I've had the experience myself. And I feel like it was just so. Anyway, I started on Twitter, which was a little bit more of a safe space to be unhinged, candidly. And then Elon bought Twitter, and I was like, this is broken now. I can't use this. Yeah. It wasn't even like, at that point, he wasn't, enemy number one. It was just like, I can't use this. I'm not seeing my friends' tweets. I'm seeing the same tweets over and over again. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't know how you guys feel, but being in tech, I'm like, if something doesn't work, it like pisses me off to no end. I'm like, why does this not work? Why does this interface suck? Whatever. So I just took my Twitter tact over to LinkedIn, and it started to translate. I started posting originally when I was at G2. Our content team was 30 people, and that was another channel for us to get our content out there. It was like we were responsible for all the things that we were writing, getting backlinks to them, getting them like whatever. So we were, Twitter, when Twitter chats was a big thing, and just like trying to start building the team brand in general. And then I just, when I worked at different companies, it wasn't always like on my brain to always be posting. I never had a company say don't post. But I did feel sometimes that I was like, I can't say certain things. So working for myself is a lot better, because I can say whatever I want. And if it keeps me from getting clients, then those are not clients that I want to work with anyway. But going back to just like, the audience is really what I'm focused on, and that's my outcome. My outcome is, am I connecting with the people? And you'll see me, and like I don't post something and then like not engage. Like I'm in the comments. Like that's the reason that I post content, is so to actually have conversations with people. And I guess my advice would be like, who do you want to speak to? Why do you want to be posting? What do you feel like is your point of view that you can speak to? I don't really post much about marketing, honestly. I post more about the corporate structure, being outside of the corporate structure, different things like that. All the memes that I post are like, this could have been an email, stupid shit like that, because it just resonates with more people, But yeah, I feel like I've found this niche now in this like I always say like I stepped outside the matrix. And I feel like I'm just like on the line of that, of like I have one foot into corporate, because all my clients are B2B startups, but I'm also like in the entrepreneur land too. So it's an interesting like place to be.
And I imagine that like you're meeting a lot of your clients through LinkedIn, right?
It's either referrals, which I just have a really good network of people either that I've worked with like directly that are recommending me, or clients that I've worked with that recommend me, or LinkedIn. I've had so many people similar to Sylvie just like reach out and say, hey, can you teach our team how to do this? And I'm like, maybe.
Well, I just go back to the point of like, we're talking about brands feeling comfortable taking a risk. Like you've built your own company. You're taking these risks all the time. You're having legit fun with it. Like if you go look at your LinkedIn profile, it's clear. Like you're having fun, you're making jokes. And it turns out that actually works. And it's not super surprising I think if you remove the platform and the posts.
Yeah.
Like I like to think about it as like if you sat down with a room with somebody and you're just really comfortable and confident and you told them some jokes that were related to work and you showed off your expertise, they'd be like, I like this person. I want to work with them. And I think it's like the hard thing that people have is translating that. You might totally do this in person. Your best person might do this all the time. You're like, it, but actually what it looks like online is just, it looks like actually the same thing would be a person making the jokes, but it feels funnier or something because you can like read it and it stays up. And I don't know, I share that because just giving people more permission to take those risks and be themselves is really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think it's
the juxtaposition of seeing my things in the feed versus like some of the other, like I think that helps me too, is like many people be like, this is a breath of fresh air. But to your point, like it's not different than how I am sitting in a room. Like, yes, I think I'm hilarious, but also it's like a coping mechanism too, right? Of like, I'm going through this trauma, so I'm going to make a joke about it. And it's a way of connecting with people through humor that it's difficult. Like, it's not for everybody. So I find it difficult when companies are like, can you teach us how to do this? And I'm like, well, what do you sound like? Who are you in the room? And then I can teach you how to be more confident in that. But I can't teach you how to be me because I can't I'm not teaching myself how to do that. I'm just
also, that's not gonna serve.
Exactly.
That's not gonna serve them, period.
Yeah, it's not gonna get the outcome that you want.
Exactly.
Right.
It's very interesting. I find that I make jokes with people all the time in person and on calls, and I have trouble figuring out how to get that voice into my like online presence.
Yeah.
And
that's what helps being a copywriter.
Well, it's just interesting because it's like I think it's a very real struggle. Like I certainly have it, and like some of the content that I've posted that's done the best was funny, and I thought it was funny. And it just took so much more work for me to figure out how to like translate it to actually show up in a way where it stood on its own.
I think for me, and again, advice that I would give somebody that like wants to be out there more, if I don't have something to say, I'm not like forcing myself to. And I think Chris, it's great. Like so much of the content game on LinkedIn is like being disciplined about being like, we're doing 3 posts a day. This works. Like it does work that way. But it doesn't mean that you have to do it that way either. Like I posted more recently, but like 1 or 2 times a week. And the reason that it works is because I'm fired up and I'm saying something that I actually have a thought in my head that I need to get out or whatever. But you'll see me like flying around different people's comments sections because I think that's a really strong way too to build your brand, is to like show up in these other places. And if you're not comfortable yet posting for yourself, start commenting on things and not saying thanks for posting or I agree with this. Like, say what you feel is correct. And when people read things in your voice, it like just gets that point of view across. And then people are like, I like what this person is saying. I'm going to like follow their stuff, you know?
Totally. I think it's also interesting because on LinkedIn, everything's attached to a real name and person.
Yeah.
And so like,
I never
like
thought
Sylvia
about
and I were
that.
just talking about this before you got on the call because we had some clips and we were seeing people say like wild ass stuff. And the wild stuff is like on platforms where it's not their name.
Yeah,
like
there's no picture.
or it's like it's hidden enough. Yeah, which is just also interesting because I think it inherently makes it more people feel like they need to be buttoned up when actually what we really want is like authenticity. Like that's what you're talking about. It's like putting yourself out there and saying what you actually believe, and then the fact that it does have your name attached to it is a good thing because it's like showing people like I have this thought, I have this idea, I have this opinion, I care deeply about it. And then suddenly now they can resonate with you. But also like, I feel like it's slightly safer because of the fact that everyone's like actual name is on everything.
Yeah. And the caveat here is that we're in B2B SaaS where everything's made up and the points don't matter. And we're like championed for being weirdos and trying new things. And whereas one of my clients is pre-seed like law software, and it's like very much a point solution, so it's even difficult to come up with content around like we're solving one thing and like how am I supposed to say that 700 ways. But I went to an event for them and it kind of dawned on me that like lawyers are people too, like maybe not my favorite people, don't want them to be at
one of my favorite people
with 500 lawyers coming up to our booth, but we built this brand around like a mascot. Our mascot is this dog. It's a search platform, so it's like a pointer dog, whatever. Like there was a whole story behind it. And people loved our swag. People loved that we were doing something different than what was in that space. But even looking at LinkedIn, I'm like, okay, like we can build a whole like content story around this dog. But if I want the founder to start posting like, or those lawyers, like it's not even if they can be themselves, because they're people, and like seeing them at this event, like look, I've been to a lot of SKOs that get crazy, but this lawyer convention was like something completely different. I was like, I need to go back to my room. Like, I need to get out of here. I don't belong here. But it showed me that, like, yes, inside their jobs, they are these buttoned up. And again, like in that corporate space, like they're not going to be posting crazy shit on LinkedIn because they're trying to get hired at the next law firm and the next law firm. And they actually look at that stuff. So like, I know that we are very lucky to be in this like loosey-goosey space, but I guess my advice to be yourself when you can be. Like, why would you not take advantage of that when you could build a career off of that? I saw a TikTok the other day that was like, you know, the world's hard right now, and the job market is horrible. So I'm actually just going to start following my passions because why not? And start trying to, and he was like, and it was easier than I thought because I actually like what I'm doing and don't feel like it's like killing myself to work. And maybe that's our like next stage of rebellion is just like everybody's going to, and again, I'm glad that I can make money being creative and for my ideas. And like, I'm very grateful for that. But I'm also hoping, like, that's not my last career. Like, I want to do something else. I don't know what that looks like.
Well, I think obviously finding the thing that you actually care about and continuing to do that thing is like the best way things could end up. Like, I think about this a lot with like, you know, AI is creating uncertainty. The tech market is creating uncertainty. There's like a ton of uncertainty. And so then it's like, well, how do you manage through it? It's like, well, if you know, like, who you like working with.
Yep.
And who you like spending your time with. And then you have like at least your values for how you go about doing the thing. Like you feel good about how you're doing it. It's a lot easier to keep doing the thing. Yeah. And it's a lot easier to get better at it. And you don't know exactly when things will hit, but at least if you have those pieces, it is much more possible to continue doing it. Because like for me, I work with my best friend. Exactly. I love the people I work with every day. I feel like I do the best work of my career like every day. That's like basically how it feels. So I'm like, this doesn't feel hard. It's like, it's awesome. Yeah. But like, if you told me I had to go do this job for another company, I didn't have all those things, it would be devastating probably. Yep. So I do think it's like so much of it is about like finding your own fit of what actually makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled. And I just always come back to, it comes back to like who you work with and how you do it. And if you don't have to sacrifice on those things, it's easy to keep doing. And if you do, there's almost always going to be a timeline for how long it's possible to continue.
Yeah, because you're giving a piece of yourself away to do that.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, no, I want to keep all of me.
And I feel like, unfortunately, our society like values that too much.
Yes.
And correct. So a lot of folks get confused. And just like your friend who's like, I just started doing what I wanted to. And like, it's actually happened faster than I thought it would. And I think about that all the time.
Yeah, I had that experience myself, and people are like, how are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just doing it, and I'm not worried about what next month looks like. I'm looking at next week.
Yeah. It's also, you wake up when you were excited about it, you like have a ton of ideas. And you're like, oh, I can't do all my ideas. And if you're not excited, it's like, what am I going to do today? Like, it's just like it's a mentality shift, I feel like, that just, it changes your energy. It's like, also, how much energy do I have to spend on this? Like, well, actually, how much energy do I get from it? Exactly. If you get energy from what you do, you're golden. Yep. This is also something I don't know why I'm like on this soapbox right now, but it's like I feel like we've hit a nerve here for me, which is also the thing of like a lot of stuff takes time, and then when it works, it can compound. Yes. But the only way you get all the value is if you actually compound it and you stick with it, and therefore, if you're doing something that doesn't give you energy or sucks or whatever, you're never going to get the chance to compound it. If you find the thing that gives you energy that you're actually excited about, then it's easy to compound it. And the compounding is where you create most of the value usually.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned this, and I've learned so many lessons like being solo, but my North Star is what gives me energy? What do I like to do? Because that's when the work is better from me too. And I feel better about that. The client feels better about that. And candidly, the things that I do best are the ideas and the structure and getting the team involved, and like, that's not nothing. Like I struggled for a long time about, okay, well, so much of consulting work is either all strategy, but then I'm going to be seen as somebody that's not actually doing anything, or like there's no deliverables tied to this. It's just about how you frame it, honestly. And like, I don't know. I'm making it up as I go, but so far it seems to be fine. So
that's awesome. That's great. That's very inspiring. Okay, we are going to go into the wild card segment of the show. Okay. So I have a list of things, and I'm going to tell them to you, and you're going to tell me if you love it, you hate it, or you have like a quick gut reaction.
Okay.
Okay?
Wait.
What?
You said a list of things. Just say
I have
like,
a list of things.
Just
But like one at a time?
Yeah, one at a time.
Under-
I'll list different marketing activities.
that's what I'm trying to say.
and then you're going to say if you love it, hate it, or if you have a quick gut reaction. Okay, ready?
What does quick gut reaction mean? Like I can just spew some
Just
shit?
speaks quickly, whatever it is. Just the whole thing that's most important is that it's quick. I don't care if it's good or not. It's
Yeah, we can do an example like cold emails, still effective or totally dead. And then you can be like, effective, love them, do them every day. Or
Got it,
whatever.
okay. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, here's my list of things. Cold emails. We'll do that first. Still effective or totally dead?
I really want it to be effective, but right now I feel like the way that it's being done is not good.
Fair.
AI generated content, game changer or overrated?
Somewhere in the middle. Again, depends on how you're doing it, but
Nuanced, yes,
mostly not good.
B2B influencers, legit or just a trend?
I'm into it. I feel like people can get their bag if they're into it, and it makes sense for them.
Webinars, must have or a snooze fest?
Mostly snooze fest right now. It's kind of sad.
Big opportunity to differentiate there. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Little plug. Company blogs, still relevant or outdated?
I love a good blog. So if you're doing it the way that you should be doing it, then keep doing it.
Gated content.
Out.
Smart strategy.
Forever
or
have
user
always
annoyance?
been out on gated content.
Out on gated. Look, you didn't even. Okay.
Yeah.
Marketing awards, valuable or just a vanity play?
Oh, I'm into it. Everybody should get a reward for something.
Corporate TikToks, cringe or super cringe?
Super cringe. You didn't even give me a choice. There.
Brand mascots, fun differentiator or outdated gimmick?
Fun. Super fun.
Fun. And I know the answer to this, but we put it on the list, so I'm going to ask you anyway. Personal brands for marketers? Essential or overhyped?
Essential, especially for marketers.
Perfect. Bridget, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is awesome. Should people go to LinkedIn to connect with you? Where should they connect with you to learn more?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the place. Our collective is currently getting our little website up, but we're called Creative Little Planets. We have a LinkedIn as well.
Awesome.
That's
amazing.
awesome.
Thank you so much. This is really fun.
Thank you.
You know, Bridget wasn't that unhinged on the show.
She was just the right amount of unhinged.
Just the right amount of hinged.
I'm glad that we talked so much about like finding your brand voice, whether that be a personal brand, whether that be a company's brand identity. And that is truly the reason why I reached out to Bridget. Like I was like scrolling on LinkedIn and I saw some of her posts about like who owns what part of a marketing process, but it was written in such a funny and compelling way. And I was like, let's get her on the show. Let's see.
I think it is interesting too, because like she talks about this coming naturally to her and like being a copywriter and writing those jokes and putting the memes out there. And it doesn't come naturally to everybody. But I think one of the things that everyone can learn from Bridget, if you just go check out her LinkedIn, is like she said this in the interview, but she is legit having fun doing it, which makes it a lot easier to keep doing it. Makes it a lot easier to try more stuff. And I do think like hosting a podcast, being on social, like it helps a lot if you are genuinely curious. And so I do think it's like, whether that's you or someone in your company or your friend or whatever, it's like, there's probably somebody who's quite curious, someone who's quite willing to be outspoken, and just like putting them into position to try this stuff tends to be what works.
Totally.
Anyway, that was a fun interview. Thank you, Bridget, for coming on. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Talking Too Loud. Please like and subscribe wherever you do consume the content. It helps us get the word out there. If you have anyone you think we should feature on the show, or topics you want us to cover, don't forget you can always email us at talkingtoloud@wisi.com. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.